Oh man, I just had this crazy dream. Kind of a nightmare, I guess, if you want to be more accurate. And, yeah, it's about 3 in the morning. I just kind of woke up out of it. And, it wasn't that crazy, I guess, for dreams. But I'm not someone who usually remembers their dreams. And I'm just recording it right now to, while it's fresh in my mind. And, yeah, it was kind of like a Japanese horror comic. Like it had the same tone as some comics I read, where like some natural disaster happens and it just follows some characters for a while till they all are slowly picked off by this new by whatever the new situation they're dealing with, by this new paradigm. And so in my dream, it starts out and I'm either at a comic convention with a bunch of other comic artists. I think there were a lot, even if it wasn't comic convention. It was, there were still a lot of artists there, like comic artists. And I think like people I know, like not really know, but people whose work I know and admire. And I can't remember exactly who was there, but there were definitely a lot of comic artists there. I think it was in Canada, so maybe it was TCAF, or something along those lines. But we were all like, everyone was hanging out in like the hotel store, of course, because hotels have a store, which was in the basement. And yeah, we're all chilling out, looking at each other's sketchbooks and drawing and stuff like that. And so it was either a convention or it could have been we're all like school students on a field trip to another country for some reason. And there was like an earthquake that like went on for a long time. And the earthquake covered up my bag, which had like my sketchbook and wallet in it, and all my ID and money and stuff like that. And immediately, like there's an earthquake happening, and the only thing I'm thinking about is, oh no, there goes my money and my ID. And for kind of the rest of the dream, that's all I'm really focused on. So we all kind of go, the earthquake happens, everyone seems okay. And we all kind of go to this rooftop. Maybe not a rooftop, we go to cafeteria to get lunch or breakfast or something, and I don't have any money, so I can't get anything. And everyone's talking about the earthquake. And then we hear like another kind of rumbling. And we walk out to like this patio area that we were kind of in this like a skyscraper or something like that. And we look out and we can see all these giant ants are walking through the street. Like hundreds or thousands of them, but they're giant, and they're like, if you were down on the street, you're getting taken away by ants. Just who knows what fate. And everyone's like going, oh, wow, look at that, giant ants. But it was weird, like how dreams can be, where like, something really extraordinary is happening, and people just kind of take it, and not too many people were freaking out at this point. People were mostly just enjoying their lunch. or breakfast or whatever, and carrying on and not really paying attention to what was happening. And so in my head, I was like, not only was I anxious about my, I guess this is a point for me, I was anxious about my money, like losing my money and identification, because I was in a foreign country, and I was like, oh, how am I even going to get, when this is all over, how am I going to get onto the plane in the airport to get home? I'm going to be stuck here forever, kind of thing. But as I was saying, the point for me is that as soon as I saw the giant ants, and when I say giant ants, I'm not talking about like 4 or 5 inch long ants. These ants are like as big as like a bus. I started freaking out internally. I was like, oh, I gotta get out. This is bad. That's like, I had this feeling that this was only the beginning of the terrible things that were going to happen. And so, naturally, I went to the roof of the building. A bunch of other people went to the roof too. And, sorry, I just kind of woke up. Yeah, a little foggy. But I gotta get through this dream. And so I went to the roof, and it was kind of like this thing where, like, like people were disappearing, and so like if you couldn't find anyone, you were kind of like, oh well, they got taken by the ants. Or like, kind of in my head, I knew that the ants were only the beginning. They were kind of like the first wave. And up on the roof, everyone was talking about the ants, and people were scared, and I was like fretting about losing my wallet and my identification. And I told somebody, another cop car, and he was like, I don't know, he introduced himself to me, and we kind of decided to be friends, at least till this disaster was over. So and then that's when the second wave of giant insects hit. A bunch of giant, like you can see in the distance, something flying towards the building, like lots of them. As they got closer, it was revealed that they're all like giant beetles with their carapaces open, flying towards the building. And I don't know, it was kind of like something out of that movie Starship Troopers, where they weren't just normal beetles. They could, like, kind of like, there's a scene in Starship Troopers where this creature like kind of breathes this like, it's like a liquid that just kind of melts people and shoots at people. And these beetles were doing that, and so they're coming right at the building. Like, the building we were on top of was right in the way of where they were going. But people weren't really freaking out. They're just kind of looking in amazement. So that was the thing that was really incongruous with like the events that were happening. Like giant insects. It's pretty unusual. Earthquakes. People were talking about it, but they weren't really. They're kind of in this weird spacey headspace where they weren't really taking what was happening super seriously. Even though, like, a beetle eventually got to the roof. Like, you'd watch them fly closer and they'd be destroying the tops of buildings and killing people. And everyone was acting pretty calmly, except for me. And it was really kind of horrifying. Like, to be like really afraid. No one else is afraid. You're like, why isn't anyone behaving normally? You know. But a beetle came and started melting people on the roof and stuff, and then something weird happened where like I don't remember exactly. It was one of those things where in the dream it made sense. Like it started happening and you kind of knew what was happening. But now that I'm awake, I'm like, I don't quite remember exactly what was happening. And then also, why would I intuit what was happening? Because it was weird. But like things started to like affect people. Like I was able to like materialize something. And it was kind of like a weapon, I think. It was like a gun of some sort that started to materialize, but it didn't completely materialize. It was like a story where a mystery, you're like, oh, what? Why is this happening? And then it's like in my head, I was like, oh, well, this will make sense eventually. Like I'm able to materialize this weapon, but it's not materialized yet, and it's something to do with the weird scenario that's playing out. For some reason, now I have this power to materialize some sort of gun, and but it didn't materialize fully, so I couldn't use it yet, and I knew I had to wait to see what it did, but I knew it was something that I could defend myself with. So that kind of took my mind off missing my ID. But yeah, at that point in the dream, me and this other comic artist I met, we were gonna go down to the basement to see if we could find my backpack with, all my identification and money in it and stuff like that. And kind of in my head, I knew like we're gonna go down to the basement and there's gonna be something even worse down there now because we had left and the ground was all cracked, like the ground all cracked and shifted, so that in my head meant that something was gonna come up and, try to eat us if we went down there. But we were going down there anyway. I wasn't really. There was this role-playing game called It Came from the Late Show that came out in the 90s, early 90s, or maybe late 80s, and it was about role-playing, like B-horror movies, and it had this aspect of it, that, like, in order to create role-playing, if you saw, like, say you went into a room and there's a bloody trail that led to a closet, you had to follow the bloody trail and open the closet door. You didn't have a choice. Like, otherwise you weren't playing the characters right. And they called it acting appropriately stupid. That concept has stuck with me. I only played that role-playing game once or twice, but I just like that concept where it's like you have to go look, like even if there's something terribly wrong, you have to go look, and so this is a case of acting appropriately stupid. So yeah, we were gonna go down to the basement, and internally I was terrified of whatever we were going to find in the basement because I knew we were going to find something terrible. And so but we were going anyway because my new friend had convinced me we should go, and we were going to go in a group. Big group of people, and I mean, I think we're students because we're all in like Japanese schoolboy uniforms, which are all kind of black with buttons and a collar and like folded up sleeves that are white on the other side. and I knew most of us weren't going to come back from this trip to the basement, you know. But that's about when I woke up. Unfortunately, instead of going back to sleep to dream some more, I was like, oh, that was weird. Maybe I could turn this into an idea for a comic at some point. You know, but it would just be like there's a certain type of horror comic from Japan that, like, it's just something inexplicable happens, and then there's just a series of crazy events, and the people are just kind of like thrown into it, and like literally all it is like every character slowly getting picked off by whatever the new situation is, and it would be exactly like one of those. Yeah, but for some reason I decided instead of going back to sleep, I would record it, and I think it would go well with this drawing I did. I think I did it like maybe even 2 years ago, but I've been sitting on this video for a while, probably only a year ago, but yeah, so if you're hearing this story, it's probably pasted over this video of me drawing a giant kaiju mosquito. And I know you're never supposed to, or the least interesting thing to listen to is someone else's dreams. So I guess in that respect, I apologize for today's meandering story that has no real ending, because I never got there. But I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting, that I'm pretty cogent enough to tell it, you know, and I'm leaving stuff out. But anyway, yeah, so look, here's a finished drawing of a kaiju mosquito I did for the Creature Club, for one of my Patreon members, and yeah, I did it about a year ago. Hope you enjoyed listening to my dream and watching me draw at the same time. I hope my voice isn't too froggy, and I hope you're all safe, well, and healthy. Alright, have a good night, have a good day. Good day to you. Goodbye. I'm gonna try and go back to sleep. Might not happen.